gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Lovely, 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 lovely. Really, really gorgeously done. Hello humans, so this is a bit of a reading update rather than a full-on wrap-up because I have had a busy month basically. I've started a new job. If you watched my last video you'll know that. So I started a new job. It's my first time doing like 95 hours, so I'm really tired all the time. I've been finishing off a few of the books that I didn't finish last month, and yeah, starting some new books but not finishing them either. So yes, it's been a bit hectic, but I thought I would just give you my kind of monthly update anyway, just so you know what I'm reading and what I'm thinking of books so far as well, which might be interesting to hear what I think whilst I'm reading, and then once I actually finish reading them, I'll get back to you at the end of the month. The first book I finished reading from last month was The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Roffey, which was it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it's earned its prize. Definitely worthy. It was a good read. I heard it on audiobook, and the voices in the book are just done beautifully. So the mermaid's voice is done by one voice actor, and then the rest of the voices are done by this male voiceover, and he does all the voices really well. It's just really well done. But the story is really good as well. I almost feel like there should be like some kind of, I don't know, it's not a trigger warning, but there are parts of it that are just so visceral, and I'm usually completely fine with things that are quite visceral, but some of them are quite horrible as well, and to have those combined at points made me feel so uncomfortable, because this isn't a completely happy book. It kind of shows how horrible men can be, especially when they see something as exotic and they don't quite understand how they feel about it. So yeah, a really good read, quite challenging at points, but I really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend the audiobook, because I think without it I'd be trying to like put my own voice onto it, and I think just having the Creole and just the way that they say things sort of solidified for me the voices, and I just really liked that. Just the little ways in which they say things differently would have been read so differently in my own voice in my head, and I just enjoyed having a little bit of guidance in some way. Good book, great audiobook, would recommend. The hype is yeah, the hype is understandable. The next book that I read was Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and I've been trying to get around to this forever, and it is a well-deserved classic, I think. I think what put me off maybe, because it's so strange, it starts the book, this isn't a spoiler because it's literally the starting image of the book. The starting image of the book is like the skull of it's like an African human skull in the attic of this great home in England. And I think maybe when I picked it up before, starting with that image, I was like, I don't like this. I don't understand why this image is here. I think maybe it makes a little more sense throughout the book, but I think just starting with that image made me very uncomfortable. And maybe that's what it's meant to make me feel, but I also know that like Virginia Woolf is just quite classist and stuff in her own right, and that does permeate throughout the book. Even when they talk about how some of the characters like to go and spend time in like the poorer parts of London, she still kind of expresses this kind of vitriol for people of a lower class and people that appear lower class. So there is that. I feel like I'm like putting down this book, but I'm just looking at it critically from like a modern point of view. Some of the bits do make me uncomfortable, but then you get these absolutely gorgeous images of androgyny. Virginia Woolf had a lesbian lover called Vita Sackville West, and they would dress as men and go about the parks for their own freedom. Obviously that was not I'm not even sure if it was actually legal to dress as a man back then. Obviously it's a very interesting story of, if you don't know what Orlando is, it's an interesting story of, from Elizabethan times we meet this nobleman who we don't really know his heritage, and he sort of becomes favourable in Queen Elizabeth's court, and then times change, and throughout the book, like, so Orlando seems to surpass time, and so the book ranges from Elizabethan times to modern day, and also Orlando changes gender throughout the novel, and it's just really just fantastic, really. And the way that androgyny is explored, there's some passages that are just so beautifully done. Even when talking about a character that appears to be like a cis woman, we have this view of her androgyny as just absolutely, it's just impeccable, and I can totally understand why this book is such a draw for trans people, because once you're in it and once you really feel the images that Virginia Woolf is creating, it's just really gorgeously done. I went for like a long walk and listened to this, and it was just a great thing to listen to, this big kind of adventure, and all of the hyperbole of Virginia Woolf's writing, it was just well done. I want to go back to it and read it on the page, because I definitely know that there are going to be whole passages that I just want to pick apart, and I'm thinking of even doing a video about those particularly trans feeling parts of Orlando. I'm sure it might have been done before, but yeah, I would just love to explore that myself in general and share that with you. The last book that I read in full this month was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and it was so beautiful. The way that I listened to this, the way I managed to listen to this full book, was by listening to a chapter each night before I fell asleep, and it's just such a gorgeous story. If you don't know what it is, it's about a caseworker for magical children. Magical children are kind of kept quite restricted in this world, and in these orphanages where they grow up. Our main character goes from orphanage to orphanage, and he's been very consistent in his job. He's been in this sort of low-level job for like 17 years, and so the extreme upper management or something like that deem him kind of worthy to go on something quite classified. So he goes to the house in the Cerulean Sea. It's queer romance, it's all these magical children, and these children are exceptional. So they're not the kind of magical children that you expect. They are extremes, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but there are some characters that you just fall in love with. Talia, one of the children, is possibly my favourite. Every single time she like appears in the book, it just makes me so happy. They all just have such perfect personalities, and they're each so individual and beautiful. And there were points in the book where I was like, okay, this like dialogue is cheesy or a bit like overdone, but I really don't care, because this story is so beautiful and is just absolutely giving me life. So it was just such a good feel read to have, and I'm usually not one for good feel reads, but it's just such a lovely book. I like magical stories that are kind of on a smaller scale, but their effects are larger. Yeah. It's just such a lovely book. I would heartily recommend to anyone. I just can't even, it's just too beautiful. So, books that I am like currently reading. We have Threads of Life, which I've mentioned in the last month. It's like a memoir, but kind of a history of embroidery and sewing, and it explores all of these different things like the Bayeux tapestry. it sort of goes from these big grandiose ideas of embroidery, and it goes to like prisoner of war camps and psychological hospitals where people have sort of used it to get by and solidify something about themselves. And yeah, I've just really been enjoying it, and I've just been taking it slow. It's kind of been a purposefully slow read. I don't want to necessarily finish it within a month. I just want to read it bit by bit because each chapter has something new to give to you, and I've just been enjoying that kind of nice, easy, slow read. It doesn't demand that I need to remember what happened in the previous chapters to be able to pick it up. So this one's kind of a purposeful slow read. I've also been reading A Record of a Spaceborn Few by Becky Chambers, which is part of the Wayfarer series. It's the third book in the series out of 4. And I've been enjoying it. It's much different from the other books. The second book really, it just had my heart. It really did. This one's on a much larger scale, and it covers a lot of different characters throughout this collection of spaceships. It's interesting, and it explores parts of the universe and parts of races that we haven't explored yet. But I'm kind of wondering, what is this building up to? My vibe so far is this book is actually about trauma and how trauma permeates throughout the years and throughout our lives and can affect so many different things. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering where the characters we've met before are. We have some people who are connected to the characters we've met before, but I kind of want them to turn up. But maybe this book is just different. Like, each book has been so different from the last. I can't really have an expectation of it. So we'll see how I feel by the end of it. I'm kind of expecting something big to happen at the end, but as ever, Becky Chambers is fantastic, and I've been quite enjoying seeing things and seeing parts of the universe and parts of races that I haven't before. The last one I've been reading, which I also mentioned in my last wrap up, is Geek Love, which just looks quite innocent on the front. A geek in this circumstance is a circus performer who bites the heads off of live chickens. That is one of the meanings of geek. So it's set in a travelling circus. This couple decide to try and have children that are freaks in a way. They try and have children that are not normal. So while this mother is pregnant, she tries to ingest loads of drugs and radiation and all kinds of stuff, and they have many, many tries of having children. So we follow their children. There are a pair of conjoined twins. Aquaboy, he has a torso and like fins instead of limbs, so he's quite good in water. Our speaker and narrator, who is a albino little person with like a hump, and she's basically considered the most normal of the bunch, not really profitable as an act, so they make use of her voice, and that's why she is like basically the writer of this story. And it goes back and forth in time, and it's just, you feel like you're gonna be on the outside of this, but you're just so in with the characters and in their minds, and you can understand where they come from, even if they do vindictive and horrible things. And yeah, just from the first chapter, you're just in. You're just in, and you understand the complicated love between these characters and the trauma and the abuse that is inherent in the way that they've been created and brought up. So not an easy read, but by no means horrible. It sounds like it should be really terrible, but it's actually, yeah, this is their normality, and we're following that, and it is kind of beautiful in its own way. I'm really enjoying it. I'm totally hooked on the story right now. I am like this far through, and yeah, I have no idea where this is gonna go, but each of the characters have like interesting relationships with each other, messy relationships with each other. they're like, they don't know how to relate to each other sometimes, I don't think, and their boundaries seem messy, and I can understand why it's got a bit of a cult following. There's like a list on the back of all these people that believe it's like worthy of a cult following, all these like so like Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love, Jeff Buckley, Terry Gilliam, Flea, a whole bunch of people who like heartily recommend this book. It's probably like 30 years old now. I'm really looking forward to getting through this book and getting to the end. Yeah, that was my kind of wrap up updatey situation on books. I'm probably going to be doing more poetry stuff this month. We'll see if people enjoy it. So I'm gonna take the poem that I started last month, and I'm gonna create a more solid poem from that and sort of do a how to edit poetry video, because I know that some people are quite terrified of editing, and editing is kind of my bag. I love it. I've done freelance editing before, so it gets me excited, and I hope I can share that enthusiasm with you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little update. As always, have a little chat with me in the comments, subscribe if you like my videos and want to see more, and yeah, I will see you next week.